Could Michael Madigan's right-hand man flip on him? And will Lakeshore Drive become DuSable Drive? Our Spotlight Politics team dissects that and more. Welcome back once again, Amanda Vinicky, Heather Sharon, and Paris Schutz. So we know that federal prosecutors are tightening the screws on former Speaker Mike Madigan, indicting his right-hand man, Tim Mapes. Amanda, who is Tim Mapes and how much does he know about the inner workings of Madigan's office?
Oh, he knows everything there is to know. He ran the office. Madigan, known very much as a hard worker. He was not a hands-off sort of leader in many ways, and yet when you have that much responsibility, you have to delegate a lot of it, and it was delegated in large part to Tim Mapes in running the show, really, on the Illinois House floor in a very organized fashion. Mapes also has a lot of personality, known for being kind of fastidious, had a wit, and that was his joking manner is how he, I think, had tried to portray it, something that got him into trouble when he was forced out in 2018 after sexual harassment, not necessarily like he was doing anything sexual, but allowing a culture to continue where of really bullying, if you will.
And Paris, we know that 4 others have already been indicted in the ComEd bribery scandal. Was Tim Mapes on anybody's radar?
Well, it's not surprising that he was on the Fed's radar. And this indictment's amazing because apparently Mapes is March 31st. He's answering questions in front of a grand jury about Madigan's role with Mike McLean, the guy you see third from the left there, Madigan's former confidant, a lobbyist. And the feds are asking Mapes, hey, did you know that McLean was acting as an agent for ComEd, going back and forth in this alleged bribery scheme? And Mapes allegedly saying, no, I didn't know that. And then the feds say, whoops, we found that you did. And here's the thing, they gave him immunity. He's under questioning there, and there's nothing that he could say if he tells the truth that's going to implicate. If it implicates him, they can't charge him. They can't use it in a court against him. So they're trying to get him to tell the truth. They're trying to pry stuff loose out of him, ostensibly so they can get to Madigan. And he's not flipping on Madigan. So now they've got these 2 charges. One of them is obstruction of justice. That carries 20 years in prison. So now the feds are up in the ante saying, all right, well, what do you think about flipping when you're staring down 20 potential years in the clinker?
Heather, you know, how likely is it that they think Mapes will flip on his former boss?
Well, the prospect of 20 years in prisons does tend to concentrate the mind, one would think. But Tim Mapes was known as a loyalist of all loyalists. He was the gatekeeper for Madigan in Springfield. And it's not surprising that if there was wrongdoing going on, it seems reasonable that the feds would want to know what he knows. But I think this is another indication of just how tight and insular Madigan's political operation was and how much difficulty federal prosecutors are having in sort of chipping away and getting to the truth. I think Paris is right. It is startling to know that Tim Mapes allegedly lied to a grand jury even under a grant of immunity. And I think that made a lot of people sort of think maybe that's why nobody else, including the speaker, has been charged in connection with this case.
Can I jump back in? I agree with you, Heather.
I do think we need to real quick point out,
I was just going to say, I was going to
Paris,
say,
go ahead, and then Amanda.
Clearly, the feds are after Mike Madigan here, and clearly, I think we can read a few things into this that they still don't have a smoking gun. He is not charged in anything, and they're trying a lot of things to get, I think, that thing that they can finally bring charges against a former speaker. And then the other point I want to make is Mapes also he was the executive director of the Illinois Democratic Party, which Madigan was in charge of. So this guy, he ran the whole show. He was the guy that made sure all the trains ran on time for Madigan, you know, as they say. Amanda, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that we did get a statement issued from attorneys who are representing Mapes, and they basically agree with us in the sense that they say that this is an attempt to try very clearly to get to the speaker. But when you read the depositions, you had a whole lot of, I don't recall, I don't remember from Mapes, and that is evidently something that the feds, they aren't buying, when in fact the attorneys who are representing Mapes say that he was asked a whole lot of blanket questions that were difficult to answer and hard to pinpoint exactly what the feds were going after, and that these were honest answers. So they are, of course, fighting these charges.
Obviously, a lot more to come on that. Now, here in Chicago, the vote to change Outer Lakeshore Drive to DuSable Drive has been delayed, and it's causing outrage among some aldermen. Take a look at some of that debate today.
What I've heard from people all over the city, there's a lot of folks who oppose any changing of Lakeshore Drive. It's one of the most iconic assets that the city has. When you say Lakeshore Drive, people know you're talking about Chicago. And I think that that's very important.
Alderman, did you have the votes?
Yes, of course. Of course. That's why they DNP it, because you have the votes.
Now, Heather, two aldermen used a parliamentary procedure to stop this today. What happened? Explain that, please.
Well, you heard Alderman David Moore say DNP. That is shorthand for defer and publish, which takes a vote of two aldermen and automatically sends whatever is up for a vote to the next city council meeting. And it has become a favored tactic for delay or obstruction. And that's exactly what happened here today. So we will have this debate again next month, June 23rd. And David Moore and other supporters, including Alderman Sophia King, are confident that they have the votes for it, which will set up a showdown with Mayor Lightfoot, who, as we just heard, is certainly not on board on making such a big change to Outer Lakeshore Drive.
So what's the likelihood that it could be blocked again, or will it come up for a vote at that next meeting?
Yeah, you can't use DNP to use the shorthand a second time, but it could trigger a veto from the mayor, and it would be the first veto since the days of Mayor Richard M. Daley, and it would be really a startling action by the city's first female African-American mayor to block such a tribute to the city's first Black resident.
Well, and to that point, Alderman King and Moore have said that this smacks of racism, but the city's Black lesbian mayor is opposed to it. How do we rectify that?
It's one of the really hard parts of this discussion, because as we've heard, Mayor Lightfoot sort of sees herself as protecting Chicago's iconic national reputation. Everybody's heard the, Lakeshore Drive song, and that's what people like to think of, riding down Lakeshore Drive. But this has really become sort of a pressure point for Chicago's African-American community, who feel like Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable has been ignored and not properly honored by the city. And we are going to come to a decision point on this next month, it seems like.
Okay, so Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown announced changes to the foot pursuit policy after the fatal shootings that we all know about of Adam Toledo and Anthony Alvarez, both in late March. Both were shot and killed by officers who chased after them. Paris, why is this change in policy only temporary?
Well, at the very top of the policy, it basically says that this issue is still being studied, but due to the extreme circumstances here, those two foot pursuits that have been high profile over the last month, that they wanted to put something out right away. I mean, that tells me that doing this is kind of like a political response. I mean, the mayor wants to be seen responding to these very controversial events and issues, but basically they're saying this is a complex issue. We have to study it. We're going to put these changes in place right now while we continue to study this, and then down the road there might be other things. And basically what this policy is doing is I guess trying to de-escalate the situation a little more before engaging in a foot pursuit. And then, oh, by the way, you have the civilian oversight debate happening, and depending on what happens, that body might be making policy on things like foot pursuits. So it's a temporary fix right now to make it seem like they are addressing something that's very controversial.
Now, let's shift to that civilian oversight debate, Paris, that you just mentioned. Reform advocates are blasting Mayor Lightfoot for her version of the civilian oversight of the Chicago Police Department. Paris, the mayor retains hiring and firing of the CPD superintendent. Is that the only major sticking point here?
No, actually, I don't think it is, because even the community proposal that seems to have a majority of support in City Council is leaving that whole issue up to voters. So they're putting that on a referendum in the next election, saying, voters, you decide. Should this new body that we put together have the power to hire and fire the superintendent? And what they said was, we acknowledge there is debate about this. A lot of folks think that the community board should have that power, but there are many folks that legitimately, incredibly believe that the mayor should retain that power, that the buck has to stop with the mayor. So there are other pressing sticking points, mainly the fact that in the mayor's proposal, it seems that at this point she still sort of controls who gets put on this board, and then it talks about, you know, a fully elected board down the road at some future date.
Heather, what happens next? You know, is there room for negotiation here? Does the mayor have the votes to pass that?
Sure. It is completely unclear whether the mayor has the votes. Majority of each of the 3 city council caucuses, so that's the Latino caucus, the Black caucus, and the Progressive caucus, have endorsed the more stringent proposal that was drafted by the community over several years and literally dozens of meetings. However, that doesn't mean that they have enough votes. They need 26, and they may need more, in fact, if the mayor vetoes the bill. So what happens next is it looks like there will be a public safety committee meeting on June 18th. That could set up a final vote on one of the proposals on June 23rd. I'm going to need a lot of coffee that day, it sounds like. And that is really where this is sort of pushing towards a solution. But these 2 proposals are very different. The mayor envisions this board as an advisory board, whereas the other proposal really concentrates power in this board, especially to pick the chief administrator of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability. And that is the main agency charged with police misconduct, even if that referendum that Paris mentioned doesn't pass or doesn't get to a vote.
All right, so speaking of changes to policing, lawmakers in Springfield, they are debating whether to keep qualified immunity for police officers. Amanda, first, you know, a very quick reminder of what qualified immunity is, and, you know, has there been any movement on that reform?
That's legal protection for police officers so that they can do their jobs, make these split-second, often dangerous, potentially decisions without having to worry about the threat of being taken to court for it, but it is qualified, so they don't get it no matter what. For example, we saw in the Derek Chauvin case, when you do something that's unconstitutional and clearly a breach of the law, then it doesn't kick in. So I don't expect that that is going to necessarily move in the General Assembly, but where it really does come into play is that you, at the same time, have police bargaining and really trying for what they term as fixes to that big criminal justice bill, the law that is, that a lot of which is going to start taking effect this summer. And they say that changes need to be made to it. So while they're trying to get a little bit of lifting of regulations, new regulations on police, at the same time you have particularly members of the Black caucus who are saying, oh no, wait, we don't think that we went far enough, and they are still pressing to lift qualified immunity in the wake of, again, George Floyd's death and all that has happened since.
Now, another pressing issue on the agenda during the last week of the spring session is new legislative maps, which finally saw the light of day. Take a look at what lawmakers on both sides of the aisle had to say about it.
The Democrats use an Etch-a-Sketch to be able to draw these lines. These things don't make sense. This is gerrymandering 101.
The Republicans have been part of this. They've been part of the engagement, the discussions. They know.
Amanda, the GOP is not happy. Who is getting, a bigger district map? Who's potentially being mapped out here?
Oh, Democrats, for sure. This is drawn in the favor of Democrats. No surprise there, they are the ones who got to draw it. And yeah, what we're seeing might be a tactic of this is the first draft of maps, and then they'll get a second draft and we'll be able to say either with honesty, because again, a hearing that started at 4 o'clock this afternoon, like just got out literally as we've been speaking, getting feedback from community members and such. So they'll roll out another version of these that will maybe be less punishing to the GOP, but it is still going to be quite punishing, particularly where you see changes are already. The suburbs have gone Democratic. There are going to be some lines drawn to try and make seats safer for incumbent Democrats or make that easier to win. And then downstate, where Democrats have lost power, particularly in more rural areas, trying again concentrate some of the more central Illinois urban areas into one district so that a Democrat might be able to have a little tip of the hat there and then leave the more rural areas to Republicans, Democrats kind of throwing their hands up and saying, it seems like we're not going to win those.
Now, Paris, in the 25 seconds we've got left, GOP is going to challenge them in court. But isn't this always the pattern? Democrats draw the map, GOP doesn't like it.
Yeah, but it seems to be maybe they have a more credible case this time because the Democrats are using data from the American Community Survey because the census numbers weren't put in on time, and maybe the GOP has an argument to say it's got to be based on the census. This other survey you're using, it's not as reliable when talking about drawing maps.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Lots to talk about as usual with our Spotlight Politics team, Amanda Vinicky, Heather Sharon, and Paris Schutz.